I'm John Harwood with the New York Times and CNBC. It's fitting that we're joined here at the Democratic Convention by the author of Born Fighting and A Time to Fight, two different books, U.S. Senator Jim Webb of Virginia. Senator, thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here.
One of the themes of this Democratic Convention is that Democrats are going to fight more aggressively than has been the case in some past elections. Some Democrats think John Kerry made a mistake at his convention in not strongly enough contesting George W. Bush. What's the right way to fight John McCain when he says that Barack Obama is a Paris Hilton-like celebrity who's not ready to lead, and when he says he's going to raise taxes and wreck the economy?
Well, if you look at the Karl Rove formula, and I had it used against me 2 years ago, and recently the McCain campaign brought all the Karl Rove people in from 04 other than Rove himself. It is very simple. It is, this person is not like you, this person does not understand you, this person cannot be trusted. And so that is really the mantra, and they have to push back in the same way. It becomes not so much this issue or that issue, but basically what is the makeup of the person who's running for president, and is he going to really understand you or not?
Well, so you know John McCain very well. You've known him for decades.
He's been a friend of mine for 30 years.
So is the right way to go back with a character attack on John McCain?
No, I think that, and first of all, everyone has enormous respect for John McCain's service to our country, and everyone pretty well knows John McCain in terms of his personality. You know, he's a combative guy. He can be very funny. He can be very mean. And I think the world of him as a friend. I think what they basically need to do is to say, this person is not like you in terms of where the country is right now. This person doesn't understand where the country needs to go, and you need somebody else to trust in terms of bringing the change that needs to go about. We don't have to get down in the gutter on this.
Given the tightening in the polls that we've seen in the last couple of weeks, do you think that the McCain attacks, the celebrity, the Paris Hilton, the gas tax, and some of the economic attacks, are they working?
Well, those type of attacks inevitably have at least a short-term impact, and you have to be able to address them. And I think what the Obama-Biden campaign needs to do is get on the message that served the Democratic Party so well all the way into, say, the late 1970s. Let's remember, the last time that a Democratic candidate won a majority of the votes in the United States was 1976. They got away from the message of taking care of working people. That message became very confused with all of these other interest groups that came into the Democratic Party, and all of those interest groups deserve some attention. But Joe Biden's history, really, when I look at him, is taking care of working people, and then we need to get back on that message, show that they have the answers that people can trust moving into the future.
You were talked about as a vice presidential candidate for some of the same reasons we've been discussing, the need to hit back. You took yourself out of contention. What do you want to see Joe Biden do now that Barack Obama has selected him?
Well, I view Joe Biden as something of a rudder. You know, a ship has a sail and it has a rudder. He's got years of experience. He's not trapped by the experience. And people, well, I think, will be reassured by the fact that not only in the campaign but in the governing cycle, Joe Biden will know how to work with the Congress. He's been down these roads so many times. And for me personally, he's got foreign relations experience and those sorts of things. But for me personally, he's someone who puts working people at the top, and that's what the Democratic Party needs to do.
Tougher to carry your state of Virginia now that neither you nor Governor Kaine has been added to the Democratic ticket?
I think Virginia is very much in play. If you look at the new voter registrations that took place in the primaries, Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama both got more votes than John McCain did, and it's not a totally fair comparison because theirs was a more contested race. But with the new voters that have come in, and with Barack Obama working very hard in South Central and South Side of Virginia, which was both areas hit very hard by outsourcing and the loss of manufacturing jobs and these sorts of things, I think Virginia has a real chance to sort of be the determining state this year.
Let me ask you one more question about Iraq, which we, at one point in the campaign, thought was going to be the dominant issue. The surge has seemed to reduce levels of violence, reduce somewhat the level of anxiety that Americans have had about our troops being there, though they're obviously tired of the conflict. How do you think the swing voters, some of those working class voters that both sides are targeting, how are they processing this change in the situation in Iraq? What role is that issue going to play in the
fight? I don't think that the situation in Iraq and the situation with respect to international terrorism has been properly articulated by either side right now. I'll say that personally. It's not simply that the surge has worked, which everyone says. It is that The forces of international terrorism are mobile. They don't recognize one national boundary or another. They weren't there when we first got there. We got bogged down in Iraq, and they pretty much relocated back to their center of gravity over in Pakistan-Afghani border. We need a sensible policy that relates to international terrorism. That isn't simply sending more troops into Afghanistan. It's let's get an articulated policy, a strategy that has an endpoint, which we did not do in Iraq and which we're in danger of not doing in Afghanistan. So I think that issue, if you combine terrorism with Iraq, it's still very high on people's radar screens. We need to hear about that. We need to hear sensible policies with respect to our future in terms of energy. That's a national security issue that ranks right up there in the top 2 or 3 national security issues. And from both candidates, we need to hear more than slogans on that.
A lot of Democrats have expressed concern that Barack Obama hasn't dominated the issue of the economy as well as he might, given what the polls show and given the opportunities for Democrats out there. What does he need to do differently on the economy?
I think that my personal view is that the debates are going to really clarify the intellectual level and the level of understanding and the desire for the right kind of changes in the future. People are going to be able to see Barack and John McCain on those issues. And honestly, I think both of these candidates, if I had one hope, it would be we would get them to articulate clearly their sense of a future in terms of energy policies, comprehensive energy policy, which is something I'm going to be working on very hard over the next year.
How concerned are you that Barack Obama, for whatever reason, is not going to be able to connect with those working class voters that you've written about, that you come from, that are key to this election?
I think he is really making good strides. You know, he's been down in Southwest Virginia right after the primaries were over. He was in South Central and South Side. I was with him in Lynchburg. We had a great rally in Lynchburg. We had 2,200 people packed in a high school auditorium right across from the Jerry Falwell Airport. So he's big part of it down there is showing up, and then it's the same thing. I am like you in terms of where I see the issues are. I do understand where we need to go, and you can trust me to bring this country in the right place in the future. That's got to be his mantra.
Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be with you.
I'm John Harwood, Chief Washington Correspondent for CNBC.